I want you to do something for me. Picture a school playground. Let's say 5th grade, 10, maybe 11-year-olds.
Okay.
You look out the window and you see boys and girls, running around. Sure, they're playing different games. We've talked about that. But they are mixing. They're talking.
They're basically inhabiting the same social universe.
Exactly. They're compatible. Now, fast forward just 2 years. 7th or 8th grade, same playground, same kids.
Oh, it's a completely different world.
Like a bomb went off, the groups have segregated, the behaviors are, well, they're radically different. It's like watching two alien species trying to make first contact.
And usually failing spectacularly at it.
A spectacular failure.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're continuing our series on the biology of the brain, digging into the core arguments from Brain Sex by Ann Moore and David Jessel. We've looked at the womb, the blueprint. We've looked at childhood. But today
is the turning point.
it really is.
Today is ignition.
That's the word you used. I love it. Ignition.
It's really the only way to describe it. I mean, if the womb was building the engine, puberty is the moment nature turns the key and floors the gas.
And it is not a gentle acceleration.
Not at all. It's a chemical explosion that fundamentally alters how the brain processes reality. The blueprint that was drawn in the womb is finally activated.
We're calling this deep dive the hormonal chasm, because the central idea here is that puberty isn't just about pimples and voice cracks. It's a biological divergence so sharp that, chemically speaking, men and women end up on different planets.
It's a complete system update. To understand why teenagers act the way they do, and frankly, why we adults act the way we do, we have to look at the fuel that suddenly floods the engine around age 12.
Okay, so let's start with the boys, because that transformation is, well, it's loud. You can't miss it.
It's violent, and that's not a moral judgment, it's a biological description. We know the male brain is organized in the womb by testosterone, but the levels that hit a boy during puberty are on a completely different scale.
I think people get that it goes up. But give us the numbers. What kind of increase are we talking about?
It doesn't just double or triple. A male teenager's testosterone level soars to roughly 20 times the level found in girls or young children.
20 times.
20 times.
Wow.
Think about it this way. Imagine you have, say, 1 cup of coffee a morning.
Right, just to get going.
Now imagine tomorrow you are forced to drink 20 cups.
My heart would explode. I'd be a wreck.
Your behavior would definitely change. Your perception of risk would vanish. You'd be, vibrating. That is essentially the teenage male experience. And the source material really emphasizes that hormones are mind chemicals.
Right, they don't just build muscle.
Exactly. They alter the brain's actual processing.
The authors use a specific term for this that sounded a little terrifying. VMT.
Violent male testosterone.
It sounds like a diagnosis.
In a way, they argue it should be viewed that way. Think about how our society treats PMT, premenstrual tension. We accept that hormonal shifts can cause irritability, mood swings. We call it a biological mood shift. It's, socially recognized.
Yeah, there's a cultural script for it. We kind of get it.
But we rarely view teenage male aggression through that same lens. When a teenage boy gets into a fight or drives 90 miles an hour, we call it a discipline problem.
We say he needs to control himself.
But the source argues these boys are in a state of toxic intoxication.
That is a heavy phrase. Toxic intoxication.
But look at the data. If you overlay the graph of maximum testosterone secretion, which peaks in the late teens, with the graph for the peak age for violent crime,
They're the same.
The lines are almost identical. It's not just a social phase. It's hardware meeting high-octane fuel.
There was one study in the notes on this that I found really telling. It was about reactions to suffering.
Ah, yes. The empathy barrier.
Because you think of empathy as just, a personality trait. You're either nice or you're not.
It's much more chemical. So researchers observed how boys and girls react to a crying child. Before puberty, the reactions are mixed. But after this testosterone tsunami hits, the divergence is stark.
What happens?
Girls, overwhelmingly, move toward the pain. They want to soothe it.
And the boys?
They often react with annoyance, sometimes even hostility.
They get mad at the crying baby.
They do, and it seems cruel, but the theory is that testosterone triggers a fight response, not a nurture response. The weakness becomes an irritant, something to be silenced, not coddled.
Which just sort of recontextualizes that whole tough guy act. It's not just posturing.
It's a chemical drive for dominance. That is the key word. Testosterone is the hierarchy hormone. The source brings up those classic primate studies.
With the monkeys?
Right. You take a low-status male monkey, the one at the bottom, and inject him with testosterone. He doesn't just get stronger, he gets ambitious.
He starts climbing the ladder.
He picks fights until he is the top dog. Now, apply that to a 15-year-old in a high school hallway. Suddenly rank matters, not backing down matters.
The source mentioned driving behavior.
Yes, how a young man might see a car overtaking him not as just traffic, but as a personal challenge.
So road rage isn't just bad temper.
It's a chemical imperative not to back down. Backing down feels like a drop in status, and testosterone screams against that.
So on one side of the chasm, we have boys on this tsunami of aggression and hierarchy. Meanwhile, the girls are dealing with a completely different reality.
A cyclical reality. And this is a crucial distinction in the book. The difference between a thermostat and a tide.
Okay, walk us through that.
It's about feedback loops. The male hormonal system is a negative feedback loop, like a thermostat.
So if it gets too hot, the AC kicks on to cool it down.
Exactly. If testosterone gets too high, the brain signals to produce less. If it's too low, produce more. It keeps things relatively steady, high, but steady.
A constant hum.
Right. But the female system is a positive feedback loop. It's more like a runaway flood. When hormone levels rise, the brain doesn't say stop. It signals for even more to trigger ovulation.
So you get these massive fluctuations.
It's not a hum, it's a tide. It comes in, goes out, and completely changes the landscape every month.
And the two big players here are estrogen and progesterone. And I have to admit, I used to just lump them together as female hormones.
Oh, they're night and day. Think of estrogen as the get-up-and-go hormone. It dominates the first half of the cycle. It boosts energy, makes you more outgoing, and this is key, it boosts sensory perception.
This is the super senses idea.
Literally. The source notes that just before ovulation, when estrogen peaks, a woman's hearing and smell become incredibly acute, specifically for musk-like odors.
So she is biologically tuning in to her environment.
Sharper, faster, more alert. But then the second half of the cycle hits. Estrogen drops and progesterone takes over. And progesterone is the sedative.
The source compares it to an anesthetic.
It mimics the effects. It calms the brain. It actually reduces blood flow and oxygen to the brain, preparing the body for a potential pregnancy. It's telling the system to slow down, nest, be quiet.
So you go from this high alert, super sensory state to a sedated, low oxygen state in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
That's physiological whiplash.
And that whiplash is what we call PMT. It's the withdrawal. The source has these case studies of women whose personalities would just radically shift, from competent and kind to hostile or depressed almost overnight.
And the legal system has actually recognized this, right?
In Britain and France, yeah. PMT has been used as a legal defense for crimes. It's an acknowledgement of a kind of temporary biological insanity. It just underscores the power of these chemicals.
So while the boys are narrowing their focus to climb the hierarchy,
the girls are becoming even more sensitive to social cues, to facial expressions, to emotional nuance, because their hormones are constantly putting them in a state of high sensory alert.
Which brings us to probably the most controversial part of the book, the ability gap.
Specifically in math and science.
The data is pretty clear. In elementary school, boys and girls are roughly equal in math. Sometimes girls are even ahead. Then puberty hits and a gap opens.
Correct. A gap specifically in high-level abstract mathematical reasoning and spatial manipulation.
Why? I mean, what does testosterone have to do with calculus?
It comes back to that tunnel vision. The theory in the source is that high-level abstract math requires a huge amount of what they call compartmentalization.
Okay, break that down. Compartmentalization.
You have to shut out the world. You have to ignore the dripping tap, the conversation in the next room, the fact you're hungry. You have to live entirely inside the abstract problem.
And the male brain, already wired for single-mindedness, gets a chemical boost for that exact trait from testosterone.
It's a hardware advantage for that specific kind of task. The male brain can isolate the problem. Meanwhile, the female brain, fueled by estrogen and that high connectivity we've talked about, is taking in everything.
It's hard to do abstract topology when you're also processing the social tension in the room.
It's not that she can't do it, and obviously many women are brilliant mathematicians, but the brain has to work harder to block out the noise that the male brain blocks out more naturally.
This also connects to the genius-idiot spectrum, the bell curve idea.
Right. The hormonal flush of puberty seems to exaggerate the male tendency towards the extremes. You get more male geniuses in math, yes, but you also get far more males with severe learning disabilities.
It's a high-risk, high-reward biological strategy.
Whereas the female brain tends to be more competent and consistent in the middle of the curve. Statistically, fewer at the absolute bottom of the ability spectrum, but also fewer at the absolute top of that very specific abstract reasoning spectrum.
Okay, so we've got different aggression, different sensory experiences, different learning styles, and then hormones do what they're famous for: sex.
Section 4, hearts and minds, or maybe impulses and context.
The source basically says the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing isn't just a sitcom trope, it's biological wiring.
It is the collision of two different sexual strategies. For the male, driven by testosterone and that very visual cortex, sex is more easily separated from emotion. It's a visual, immediate release.
The authors use the rooster analogy, the Coolidge effect.
It's a classic biological observation. You put a rooster in with a hen, he mates with her, eventually he gets tired, loses interest.
He's done.
But if you introduce a new hen,
Suddenly he finds the energy.
his interest is reignited instantly. The source argues this is a default setting in the male brain. Testosterone drives a craving for visual novelty.
We usually talk about objectification as a moral failing. The source treats it as a biological setting.
A default setting, yes. It doesn't mean men should act on it. We have frontal lobes for a reason, but the impulse is there. The neurology makes it easier. But for the female brain, it's the total opposite.
Because of the connectivity.
Her emotional centers are wired directly into her verbal and sensory centers. She literally struggles to separate the act from the context. For her, sex is the relationship.
So while he is stimulated visually by what he sees, she's stimulated by what?
By the tone, by voice, by touch, by the safety of the connection. That auditory advantage comes into play. A man can be turned on by a picture. A woman is often turned on by what is said or how it's said.
So he's on a visual, immediate program. I see, I want, and she's on a relational, contextual program. I feel, I connect.
And neither is wrong. That's the key. They're just talking past each other. He thinks she's complicated because she needs context. She thinks he's shallow because he needs visuals. But really, they're just answering to different chemical masters.
It really reframes those teenage dating years, doesn't it? The high school disaster zone.
It's a miracle any of us survive it.
So let's pull this all together. We started with this idea of the hormonal chasm. And looking at the evidence, chasm feels like the right word.
It is. Puberty is the moment where the sexes truly diverge. That biological distinctiveness that began in the womb is now fully operational. The factory is open for business.
We have two groups of humans who are chemically fueled to perceive the world and solve problems in fundamentally different ways.
One is running on a high-octane, aggression-promoting, focus-narrowing serum. The other is riding a complex, cyclical, sensory-enhancing tide. Same world, different maps.
And this sets us up perfectly for our next deep dive. Because these teenagers grow up, they graduate, they walk into the modern workplace.
The ultimate test lab.
Exactly. So next time, we're going to ask, what happens when we throw these two different operating systems into the office? Is the glass ceiling purely social, or is biology playing a role?
That's a dangerous question.
We like dangerous questions. But before we go, I want to leave everyone with one final thought. We've established today that a teenage boy is under the influence of a chemical aggression 20 times stronger than a girl's. And a girl is riding a chemical roller coaster that alters her sensory perception every single month.
That is a biological fact.
So here's the question. If we know that,
Yeah.
why does our school system and a lot of our society insist on treating them exactly the same? Why do we sit them in the same rows, give them the same tests at the same time, and expect the same behavior? Are we actually creating equality? Or are we just ignoring reality?
Something to think about.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.